Hey everybody, Pastor Stephen Anderson here from Faithful Word Baptist Church in Phoenix, Arizona with part 4 of my life story. So toward the end of 6th grade, my family went back to Citadel Baptist Church. And so I was going to go to that Christian school in 7th grade. Well, during this time, it had gone from being Citadel Baptist School, which was for church members only, to being Citadel Christian School, open to the general public. Well, the school was located in South Sacramento. It was a super ghetto, derelict part of town. And so all kinds of really bad kids came into the school. And many of them had literally been expelled from public school. And that's why they were being put in this Christian school. But the church was struggling. They needed the money. So they just kind of opened it up to these kids, which really kind of defeats the whole purpose of the Christian school. Parents are probably putting their kids there because they want to keep them away from that element. And the worst element was right there. I probably should have just told this to my parents right away, but I felt bad. They were spending a bunch of money to send me there. I'm trying to just go with the flow. And, it ended up being a nightmare of a year. I'm not going to go into detail in this video just because I've already talked about this in my sermons. And so I don't want to repeat things here that I've already preached about. But it was just a really bad atmosphere. And there's one good thing I want to talk about, though. Positive thing about 7th grade was that it was very academically rigorous. So my teacher, Mrs. Khan, was not playing games at all. And I'm just going to give you one example of how hard this year was academically. She was teaching us the history of science. And so we were learning about all the major scientific discoveries from the 1600s to present day. And there was this chart that just listed like so many discoveries and who discovered them, what they discovered. It was a long list. I don't remember how many things were on the list, but it was pretty long. And so when it came time to be tested on this, we basically just had to reproduce this chart from memory, the whole chart. So she basically just gave us the year, and we just have all this long list of years, and we have to say who made the discovery and what they discovered. I mean, we're talking 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. And so virtually everybody failed this test. I got a 43% on the test. And so I thought, well, surely it's going to be graded on a curve or something like that. But no, she shows up the next day and it's the wrath of Khan. I mean, she was mad and talking about how pathetic our performance on this test was. And she said, I'm not grading on a curve. This is not going to go away. In fact, I'm going to make you take the same test again a week from now. And she said, this is what's going to happen. We're going to take your new score and your old score and average it. And that's your final score. And there's going to be no more second chances, no mercy. Well, I'd gotten a 43. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, even if I get 100, then the best I can hope for is like a 71, a 72, when all's said and done. And at this school, because the academics were strict, 71 wasn't even a C minus. 71 was actually a D, if you can believe that, because they had kind of shifted things a little bit. If you were in the low 90s, it was already a B. It wasn't the normal grading scale. So, man, that's what I did. I memorized the chart. I came back. I got 100. And then my final score was like 71 or whatever. And, virtually everybody else did the same thing because we had to. We had no choice. And that was just kind of one example. The whole semester or the whole year was like that. And so it was good because we learned a ton. We had to work really hard academically. And then after that, the whole rest of my school career just felt easy after that. It was all downhill because I learned so much in 7th grade that, it was all downhill from there. Another funny thing that happened when I was in 7th grade was I joined the junior varsity basketball team, JV basketball, because the way that it worked was like 7th to 12th grade was all together. So even though I was in 7th grade, I was able to get on like the lower end basketball team. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't very good at basketball, but I was enthusiastic about it. I really wanted to do my best and excel at it. So I showed up for the practice. One of the things I remembered about the first day of practice was just going in the bathroom and puking and literally just several guys all just being lined up puking into sinks and toilets because we were doing wind sprints and we just weren't in shape for it. So everybody's puking their guts out. I mean, this was really intense. So I went to all these practices and I'm trying to, get better at playing basketball. And I was kind of excited about like the idea of like being on a sports team and stuff like that. So the very first game of the season comes around, and I did not get put in at all. Like, I'm just on the bench the whole game. Second game, toward the end of the game, I finally get put in, and I played for like, I don't know, 60 seconds or something. But it was like, hey, I got put in, I got to play a little bit or whatever. Well, then right at this exact time, my mom got a job. Up to this point, she'd always been a stay-at-home wife and mother. But there was a financial recession at the time. And so, my parents needed the money. She went out and got a job at JCPenney. And I ended up having to quit the team because I couldn't make it to the practices. Scheduling didn't work. So that was my only time in my entire school career that I was on a sports team. And I played for about 60 seconds. And it was a very short-lived career. So anyway, after that, I went to 8th grade at Victory Christian, because I told my parents, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I should go back to this school another year. I kind of just mildly told them about, this school's not really very good. So they put me in Victory Christian School. And when I started going there in 8th grade, it was just like paradise. It was like a breath of fresh air because of the school I was coming from. It was just so nice to go to Victory. And the other cool thing was at the beginning of every year, we would go to camp for 3 or 4 days. So you'd go to class for a couple days, then you'd go on this camp trip for like 3 or 4 days where, you're sleeping in cabins and you're doing activities, playing outside, swimming, you're listening to a lot of preaching in chapel and eating communal meals and stuff. So it's just a great way to like make new friends and start off the year on a positive note and everything like that. So I really enjoyed going to school there for 8th grade, 9th grade. It was pretty good. By the time I got to 10th grade, I got a little disillusioned with some things about the school, but 8th and 9th grade, I was pretty happy there. One of the things about this, though, was that the school was very far from our house because Citadel had been pretty close to our house, whereas this school was quite a ways away, like more than a half hour away. So I ended up having to carpool with this other girl. And the way that this worked was that because of her mom's work schedule, we didn't get picked up from school each day until 5:15 p.m. So the school day was supposed to be like something like 8 to 3, but I would end up being gone from my house. I think I'd leave my house around like 6:45 every morning to get there. And then because I'd have to go to her house, and then her mom would take me the rest of the way to the school. And then we would give them gas money or whatever. And then her mom wouldn't pick us up until 5:15 p.m. So I was literally gone from my house every day from like 6:45 a.m. to 6 p.m. So when school would end at 3 o'clock, I would just be there for another 2 hours and 15 minutes, which for me, I didn't mind. It was cool. I enjoyed it because there were about 4 or 5 other kids whose parents were the same way, like they worked and couldn't get there. So it was just like 5 or 6 of us would just kind of hang out for 2.5 hours. And so it's pretty good. Well, the main story of this episode I want to tell is the beginning of 10th grade, and it's about a guy named Fred. Okay. So this new kid shows up at the beginning of 10th grade, and his name's Fred, and he was just kind of just a dorky kid. It can be an awkward stage. And so this kid was just kind of nerdy, just kind of dweeby, didn't really, have social skills, I guess you could say. Just to give you one example, he showed up to school one day, like within the first few weeks of school, wearing a tie, which was kind of weird. Like nobody's wearing a tie. Like everybody's showing up in like a t-shirt or something. It was very casual. He shows up in a shirt and tie, but the tie had a rubber ducky on it. I mean, think about it. We're 15 years old. Imagine a 15-year-old boy like showing up to school wearing a tie with a rubber ducky on it. It was pretty rough. So anyway, this kid, he's a nice guy. There's no issue with the guy, but he was just, not very cool. So he shows up one day and he's got invitations to his birthday party. And these were very childish invitations. Like they're clearly made by his mom, goofy invitations. So I'm standing in the lobby of the school with 2 other kids, and he walks up and he hands all of us an invitation. And I'm like, oh, cool, thank you. I'm looking at the invitation, oh, thanks, Fred. I was always nice to him. I never had any issue with him. And again, school had just started like 2 weeks ago. And so as soon as Fred walks away, the other two kids that I was with, they just start tearing up the invitations and saying, I'm not going to go to this stupid party. This is dumb. Fred's such a geek or whatever. And it kind of just made me feel bad. I felt sad that they were tearing up the invitation because, he was real nice, came up and friendly, invites us. And then they're just, as soon as he's gone, they start talking bad about him and tearing up the invitation. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I just said, well, I'm going. I said, I'm going to this party. I'll be there. So they're just kind of like, whatever. So around this time, my dad had just gotten a Xerox machine for no reason. It was just a friend of his was getting rid of it. And he's just like, sure, I'll take it. And he put it in the living room of our house, which kind of it didn't really make sense. Like in the living room of our house, there's like a sofa and a piano and a Xerox machine. And we didn't really need a Xerox machine. Why did we have this Xerox machine in our living room? I don't know. But we thought it was super cool because we're kids, right? So we're playing with it. We loved it. We thought it was super fun to have a Xerox machine. Well, here's the thing. We just got in the Xerox machine, and my best friend at the time was named Matt. And so Matt came over to my house after school that day. And I said to Matt, hey, what if we took this invitation to Fred's party? What if we just made our own invitation to the party and made the party sound way cooler and then get everybody to come? Because I'm like, I don't think it's cool the way they're just tearing up the invitation and nobody's gonna come. I feel bad for this kid. Don't we want to have fun? Don't we want to go to a fun party? Let's make it a fun party. So Matt and I, we're sitting around talking about this and brainstorming. And so we hop on the computer, and we had a computer and we had Adobe Illustrator, which was, back then it was kind of an expensive software, but we had it on our computer. And so we used Adobe Illustrator to make like this really cool looking invitation for Fred's party. And then we have a Xerox machine in the living room. So we make this 2-sided invitation, and we just made it sound like it was just the most awesome party in the world. And it said on it, bring a gift for admission. And it had all these just kind of wild claims on it about different guest appearances I don't remember all the details, but we made it just sound like it was just the event of the year. Fred's birthday party and bring a gift for admission. I remember it said no illegal substances. And then on the back of the invitation, we put a map to his house. So we put the address, we put a map of how to get to his house. And then at the top, for some inexplicable reason, we put a title across the top, Map to Fred's Rave. Because that was something that we had just seen on the news or something. It was like some new kind of wild party or something, And it probably involved drugs, so that's why we're like, well, if we're gonna say that, we have to say no illegal substances or whatever. So we made this invitation, and then we just started cranking out copies of it from the copy machine, so that we literally made several hundred copies of this invitation. So we go to our Christian school, and we're giving this invitation to everybody at the school. But then we're giving the invitation to everybody outside the school. So we went to our church youth groups. We're giving it to everyone in our church youth groups. We're giving it to other kids, telling them to give it out in their youth group. So it just kind of snowballed into this thing where we literally put out several hundred invitations to this kid's birthday party. And nobody even knows who this kid even is. They're just getting this Fred's birthday, bring a gift for admission, just making it sound super cool. So anyhow, this gets back to Fred a couple days before the party. And more importantly, it gets back to Fred's mom. Now, Fred's mom had just been hired by the school as some kind of a secretary. So she's a school employee. So she confronts me at the school, and she was like hyperventilating. She's panicking, like, what have you done? Like, how many people did you invite to my house? Like, what's going on with this party? And so I'm trying to set her mind at ease. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. She's like, her biggest concern was like, I don't think I'm going to have enough food. How many people did you invite? And I didn't want to tell her how many people I invited. So I was just like, don't worry about it. I'm like, we'll bring extra food. It's going to be great. Don't worry. It's fine. So then we get called into the principal's office, and the principal was really mad, and he's chewing us out and, telling us that we shouldn't have done this, and that, this party sounds like it's going to be sinful. And I said, I was like, whoa, buddy, there's nothing sinful about this party. He's like, why does it say no illegal substances? That makes it sound like, that's even on the table. And I'm like, well, no, it's not on the table. That's why we put that there. So he just said, well, I'm really worried about it. And he said, this is a staff member that's involved. And so, this is the reputation of our school. So he said, we're going to send chaperones from the school to the party to make sure everything's on the up and up. And I said, great. I said, no problem. I said, that sounds great. Send your chaperones. He was trying to punish us somehow, but he couldn't really punish us because we hadn't really broken a rule. Because, I said to him, like, well, what rule did I break? He said, well, none. Okay, well, then what are we talking about here, And so, we ended up kind of coming up with a compromise that they were just going to send chaperones from the school and make sure everything was fine. So anyway, the day of the party, the party was like the next day. We show up at the party, like Matt and I got there like 2 hours early because, we wanted to help a little bit and everything. So we brought like an extra table. We brought a bunch of food and drinks and stuff because we were trying to help out. Well, when the party comes around, literally over 150 people showed up to this party. Okay. So this is like a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath type house, small backyard. And I kid you not, this place was packed with people. The backyard is packed with people. The living room, the family room, just every part of it is packed with people. And most of these people have no idea who Fred even is. People are showing up like, who the heck is Fred? But they're just there to, be at this party with other Christian kids. And so, the party was just massive. And remember, we had said on the invitation, bring a gift for admission. And so Fred got so many gifts. And the most popular gift that he got was either cash, which was like a $5 bill or a $10 bill. A lot of people just brought like $5 there, happy birthday, Fred. But then the other most popular gift was they brought him like Christian rock music CDs, just popular Christian music from the time. And I remember, I kid you not, at the end of the evening, he had a stack of Christian CDs that was at least 2 feet tall. And I remember there were certain like kind of the hot Christian albums that had just come out. He'd have duplicates. So I remember there was one particular CD, he had 5 copies of the same CD given to him just because he had just received so many CDs. There's only so many, popular CDs that are out there, especially amongst like, Christian rock and stuff like that. So he had like stack of CDs like this. He got a few $100s in cash. Somebody gave him a bunch of $2 bills. He got some rare coins. The main thing I remember him getting, though, is just a lot of money and a lot of CDs. I remember while he was opening his gifts, we were sitting in the living room. There was no place to sit in the living room. So me and a few of my friends were literally sitting under the kitchen table, like because that was just the only floor space that was left in the house. So I think I want to say the party started at like 5 p.m. or 6 or something like that. So around like 8 or 9 p.m., she just kicks everyone out. She's like, this party's over. Everybody's out. 150 plus teenagers. So I want to say it was like maybe the party went on from like 5 to 8 and then at 8 o'clock because it felt early, her kicking us out. So she kicks us all out. But then here's the thing. Everybody's just in the front yard because none of us have a car. None of us can drive. There were some older kids that had licenses, but we're 15. We're 14. We didn't have cars. So we're all just in the front yard, like 100 teens are in the front yard. So then the police showed up. because the neighbors had showed up because the party basically just continued in the front yard because of the fact that nobody has a ride. And so we're all just hanging out and having fun in the front yard. The neighbors called the police showed up. But then it's like everybody's just telling the police like, "Oh, well, we're waiting to get picked up." I had called my ride and I was waiting to get picked up just like everybody else. So I was like, what do you want us to do, officer? Like, we called our ride. We're 15. We're waiting to get picked up. But at the end of the day, even though Fred was nervous going into the party, afterward he was super happy because he ended up having like the greatest birthday party of all time, huge turnout, and he was just super happy to have like hundreds of dollars cash. And by the way, money was worth more back then in 1996 than it is now. So I mean, a few $100, that was serious money back then. And he's got all the CDs, he got some other gifts and stuff. So at the end of it, he was really thankful. At the end of it, his mom was happy and she was thanking me and stuff. She wasn't upset in the end. So fast forward 4 or 5 years later, I was newly married. And when I was newly married, my wife and I would go out to dinner with my parents every Friday night, pretty much. And we would go eat at Chili's virtually every Friday night. So we're in the waiting room for Chili's. This is when I'm like 20 or something, maybe 19, 20, 4 or 5 years later. And we run into Fred because I hadn't seen him since 10th grade. I never saw him again. We went to 10th grade together. We never really became friends. Even after the party, we still weren't really friends or anything. We went to school together. I switched schools and went to a different school for 11th grade. Never saw Fred again until 4 or 5 years later. I see Fred 4 or 5 years later, and he was not nerdy at all. Like, he just seemed like a totally cool, well-adjusted, 20-year-old guy, just totally cool guy. And he's got this beautiful girl with him. And he's like, "Yeah, this is my fiance." And I'm like, wow, Fred has really made it, because he went from being kind of this awkward guy when he's 15. Now he's like looking cool, beautiful wife. And so we run into him in the lobby and he tells his fiance, he says, "Hey, honey, this is the guy that I told you that threw me that party back in 10th grade. So it's just kind of funny because, I guess the way I kind of wanted to interpret that was that kind of like maybe throwing him that party maybe boosted his confidence a little bit, or, maybe helped him to become a little more social. I don't know if it had anything to do with it. He probably just grew up. But, the way that I like to tell the story, though, is that, that party was like a turning point for him so that he became more social and had more confidence and well-adjusted. Anyway, it was just kind of a wild thing that happened, just from a silly idea of, hey, let's all go to this guy's party and let's have a good time. Let's make it fun, to where it just snowballed to where it's like, hey, let's use the Xerox machine and make 400 invites. Let's invite everybody. We're just inviting the whole world. 150 plus people actually showed up. It was pretty wild. His mom had originally put out, I think, 20 invitations total. So anyway, that's that. God bless you. I hope you enjoyed the story. Have a great day.